Hey, we're going to get going here this week, and what was a little surprise is on going back to the Sunday night trade is at this time of year, normally the weather moves the market on the Sunday nights more than anything else. And this past week, though, what happened is it was all politics as India announced that they were banning wheat exports on the world market. So the big question is how much wheat does India really export? And they're forecasted this year, just like this last year, to export a little over 300 million bushels. But as you can see on this chart, they haven't exported more than 200 million bushels. You got to go all the way back to the 2012, 2013 marketing years when that occurs. So historically, India is not a major player in the world wheat market, but with higher prices and they had some supply, they decided to push some out on the world market. Now some crop issues, they're sitting here and pulling it back. The big talking point that they're using for this way is food security issues. They don't want food inflation to run away in their country, but we just think this food security could be a big talking point in the market. When you look at food security, it gets us to the Ukraine and Russia war. And the thing you got to keep in mind there, the combined production out of those two countries, they're major exporters of both wheat and sunflower oil. Actually, when you look at it, they export around 30% of the world's wheat exports, and they export around 60% of the world's sunflower oil exports. When you add it all up, we find this to be an interesting stat that they produce about 10% of all the calories that are traded globally. And so, you got to keep this in mind in here. Food inflation and food security is an issue. You also are throwing this war in here as well. Now, when you talk to politics, and you get on the food security issue, that this hasn't been debated yet, but we could move to the point where food versus fuel could be a talking point from politicians. Here are some quick facts. 17% of Indonesia's palm oil is used for biofuel. We crush 35% of the U.S. corn crop for ethanol, and 40% of our U.S. soybean oil that's produced here is used for biofuels. We don't want to bring this into a political debate in here right now, but it is obvious the way the market traded on Sunday night that politics have a huge influence over the market. I mean, let's face it, if India did not ban wheat exports, we doubt we would have seen wheat up the daily limit of 70 cents. Another thing we want to touch on quick is the economy. And a stat out over the weekend is that China's industrial output was down 2.9% in April. This is only the second time in the last 40 years that their industrial output was negative. The last time it occurred was early 2020 with the COVID outbreak. Is this because of the COVID shutdowns, or is the world economy really starting to slow down? Now we want to wrap up here this week. And I guess the thing that sticks out to us more than anything else is that politics move the market. And you're going to see food security is a major headlines in here right now. What's going to come out next? Okay, that's what our biggest question is. Is it the food versus fuel debate? Is it other world exporters pulling back on their shipments? What is going to happen? What we find is a bit odd on the India situation is if they really don't want to export, they should just raise their price. If they're the world's most expensive, no one's going to buy. When we look at an economic standpoint, there's concerns over things slowing down here in the U.S., especially with higher energy prices. Is it all because of COVID lockdowns in China? I mean, that's giving us our first sign in here that some world economies are beginning to slow down. And we just kind of want to wrap up this week on looking at some world crop issues. Where are the hot spots out there right now? The focus of the market in the near term is kind of the EU wheat production. France has been extremely dry. When you get here to the U.S. on wheat, it's just a tale of two different areas of the country. One too dry down south, one too wet up in the northern plains. The Canadian prairie is slow, and the other thing we have to keep in mind is that this Brazilian second corn crop, we have had some dry weather in here where we could be trimming those yields. South America is still offering corn cheaper than the U.S., so we don't think it's a complete crop failure, but that crop does seem to be getting a little bit smaller. Thanks for tuning in. And what we just want to wrap up here today is we kind of switched in here our Sunday night calls and went to a video format. You got to really let us know if you like that or not, or if you plan or like us to go back to straight text messages. We try to change in here. We're not saying it's all perfect, it's all right, but we're trying to bring you a better product. Any suggestions, let us know. Have a great day.